Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second Lean HE Encore, hosted by Lean HE Europe. Welcome again. This afternoon, we have the pleasure of having two presentations from the Lean HE conference hosted in San Diego last year. With us today, we have Linda Spinks from the University of Cambridge, whose session is titled Respect for People, Improving Your Personal Wellbeing. So that's Linda's session, and shortly after that we'll have a short break, and then the second session this afternoon is Building a Process Improvement Roadmap, Who, What, When, How. And that will be delivered by Karen Kusler from the University of Texas in Arlington, United States. And Karen will be joined by a few colleagues from her university as well to help share their story. So very much looking forward to that. Before we get into that, Linda Spinks will also give us a brief update on what's happening with regards to the preparations for the 2024 Lean International Conference hosted by the University of Cambridge. So that's going to be happening very shortly. But before I do that, I just wanted to thank you all for attending today. We have quite a good spread of colleagues from across the continental division in Europe. We have countries represented: Norway, quite a strong contingent from Norway, which is great to see. We have people here from England, Scotland, the Netherlands, Ireland, France, and Poland, and including some students studying on a lean management course in Poland. So great to have you with us today as well. And obviously with Karen and colleagues, we also have people here today from the United States of America. And the time with Karen and colleagues at the moment is, I think it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So an early start, and we very much appreciate them taking the time out of their day to join us. So without any further ado, I'm going to invite Linda Spinks to give us an update on planning for the 2024 conference. Linda.
Thanks, John. And I'll just ask everyone to bear with me. I'm more of a Teams girl than a Zoom girl, so just make sure that I get everything where it should be. And there we go. I'll just put that into presentation mode. And I'll play a short video.
How do we sustainably bridge the gap between tradition and innovation? Here at Cambridge, we're no strangers to tradition. From cobbled streets to historic buildings to gowns and graduation ceremonies, we've been known for academic excellence for more than 800 years. From this tradition springs innovation. The discoveries of gravity, evolution, and DNA all have their roots at the university. From stem cell research to botanical firsts, Cambridge respects the past but dares to do things differently. But in a world that is ever evolving, how do we ensure that we keep moving in a sustainable way? From profit to people to planet, we need to have a long-term sustainable vision for the future. Continuous improvement and a lean way of thinking provides us with a framework to support our traditional structures, whilst allowing future generations the space to grow and meet their needs. Implementing sustainable change isn't easy, but these challenges are the foundations upon which we build our bridges to the future.
Throughout its history, Cambridge University has maintained a position of distinction amongst global universities, not by standing still, but through a process of continuous evolution. From historical challenges to recent issues like Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic, the university has shown its ability to respond to challenges by adapting and changing. Fostering a culture of continuous improvement in our universities is essential for us to maintain our position in the world of higher education.
The University of Cambridge's mission and indeed our passion, is to contribute to society through education, learning, and research at the highest international levels of excellence. We know many of you share this passion. We are delighted to invite you, our higher education colleagues from across the globe, to join us in Cambridge in 2024 to learn from and inspire one another.
The Lean HE Network has been encouraging us to share our stories for over 10 years. Coming together from across the world, we found motivation and inspiration in each other's stories, and we can't wait to welcome you to the University of Cambridge in 2024 to hear your stories and together discover how we can improve processes both for now and in the future. So, some of you may have seen that video before. I never really get tired of seeing it. It sort of gives me goosebumps whenever I watch it. There's a QR code there. If you don't have or haven't seen that before, that gives you the link to the conference website. So I'll just give you a minute or two if you do want to scan that. But I'll give you a little bit of detail as well once you've had a look at that. So conference this year is from the 23rd to the 25th of October, which is a Wednesday to Friday, as is tradition these days, and it will be taking place in Cambridge. In terms of, come on slides, move on. In terms of our locations, we've got a number of slightly different locations for the conference. Day one will be spent at the Cambridge Union Society, which is around about 200 years old. It's a place where debates take place. There's a beautiful old debating chamber, and we've also got use of the library, which has got some really old and really interesting books. So that'll be day one. We'll be at the Hilton in the centre of Cambridge for days 2 and 3, but we'll be holding our conference dinner at Fitzwilliam College, which is one of the 31 Cambridge colleges attached to the university. Our theme, as you saw in the video, is sustainability and lean, bridging innovation and tradition. And within the conference website, there's some under the abstract section, there's some hints and tips as to what sort of topic might be useful under that theme. We are still open for abstracts. You may have seen, and perhaps we'll share afterwards, we're running a short session on the 3rd of June to look at, if you've never presented at a Lean HE conference before, to come along and have a chat with some of us that have, to give you some hints and tips, because we'd love to hear some new voices and see some new people presenting at our conference. Registration is open and will continue to be open to the summer. We're selling a healthy number of tickets, but hopefully everyone who wants to come will still be able to. Ticket price is £745. That includes the 3 days of the conference dinner, any refreshments during those days, but doesn't include conference bedrooms or an overnight. There is some information on the website about accommodation, and we're about to imminently send out a newsletter with some additional options for accommodation, depending on your budget. Abstract submission, if you are thinking about submitting an abstract, closes on the 8th of July. We're starting to see them come in now, so we're really excited at looking at what the community will be sharing with us. We're going to be starting over the next few weeks via LinkedIn and social media, starting to see some of the 4 speakers that we've already that we've invited to come along and speak. So we'll start to share information about those over the coming weeks. And that's all I had to say really about the conference. Happy to take any questions via email. On the website, you'll see an email link, and our coordinators will forward any questions that you might have to us. And that's it, conference-wise.
Thank you very much, Linda. would you like to stop sharing for a second?
Yeah, will do.
Your prompt for questions is a timely one for me, because what I should have said to begin with is, if you do have a question throughout the webinar this afternoon, please use the Q&A function, and a combination of myself and Svenara will sort of manage the questions that are coming in towards the end of each session, and chat with the presenters and pass over any questions that you have throughout the session today. So please do use that function. So if you have any questions in particular for Linda about the conference, please use that function just now. I guess one thing that I would echo based on what Linda has said is really to encourage all of you, if you haven't presented at a Lean HE conference before, please seriously consider it, because I think everyone has a story to tell. Everyone is at a different stage. We all do things differently, but everyone has that story to tell. So please have a think about it. Come along to the session where more information will be provided around abstracts. And as I say, Linda, if you could, once you've finished your next presentation, if you could dig out that link to the session that you're talking about, we can put that in the chat or the Q&A function so people can register for it. So I'm just giving Linda a couple of seconds just to compose herself again, because she's straight back on in a couple of seconds to present her first session. So the session, as I mentioned earlier, is called Respect for People, Improving Your Personal Wellbeing. Now, Linda delivered this session in San Diego in October last year with her colleague Bex. Unfortunately, Bex couldn't be with us today, so Linda is doing it solo. So a challenge there for you, Linda. And at the conference itself, it was very much an interactive workshop, hands-on with people in the room. So Linda has also had to adapt her session to suit, albeit I think Linda is still going to challenge us all to do a little bit of interaction during her session. So it's my pleasure to hand over again back to Linda for her presentation.
Thanks, John. And so it might be unfortunate for us that Bex is unable to join us, but she's actually in Crete on holiday, so not at all unfortunate for her. She's having a lovely time. Okay, so our session, on the edge of burnout. It was something, part of the theme of the San Diego conference was on the edge, and we wanted to bring in looking a little bit about how we can look after our personal well-being, but to also utilize some tools. And one of the tools in particular is one that we use and we train out to our colleagues across the university. But you'll hear about that in due course. So just a little bit about myself and the team in Cambridge, who hopefully, if you do make it along to the conference in October, you will meet us all in person. So for myself, I'm the Continuous Improvement Lead at Cambridge. I've been working at the university for almost just over 20 years and a week. Joined as a business analyst and then moved fairly quickly into continuous improvement, because I realised that what we were doing was putting complicated IT on top of poor process. I was very much a lone wolf for a number of years until early 2020, just before lockdown hit, when I was joined by Elaine Carpenter and Michelle Fordham as continuous improvement advisors, and then a little while after that, Rebecca Shipley, Bex, that John referred to. And then most recently, we have Kelly Billington, who's joined as a digital improvement analyst. So she's looking at how we can utilise the digital tools that are available to us to help us on our improvement journey. So that's a little bit about who we are as a team. What do we do? What do we cover? And why is the topic that I'm going to share with you, why is it relevant, I guess? So A chunk of what we do is around training. We're accredited with the Lean competency system to deliver both introduction to Lean and Lean practitioner training. We also, around that, deliver additional courses around facilitation skills, analysing business process, and then various other sort of ad hoc courses that come along. Michelle, interestingly, we had a number of events last week for Learning at Work Week, and Michelle devised a session on failure and learning to fail and utilising failure. So I'm working on her at the minute to deliver that in October at the conference, because it went down really well. We have some various other sort of little bits of online bite-sized training videos that people have access to. But the other side of our role is that sort of more targeted consultancy. So we work very much bottom up, very much on local initiatives, supporting people across the university in their improvement journeys. So it's bringing that training and practice together, really. We sometimes get drawn into the bigger, more strategic projects, but our heart really is that bottom-up support. And that's sort of reflected in our vision. So our vision is to have an embedded continuous improvement capability across the university with empowered people making meaningful change. And I think what we're going to focus on really is that empowering of people and people being able to sort of be effective in their roles and ensure that they can make meaningful change really stems in them having a true sense of well-being as well. Hence the topic I'm going to talk about. So that's enough of the preamble. Let's get into the content. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the GROW model, which is very much a tool used in coaching, part of the coaching framework. But it's a good way to identify where some of our problem areas are. I'm just going to move away. So we start off with the GROW model, thinking about the first aspect, which is about our goal. What is it we want to achieve? What do we, if we think about where we are, either professionally or personally, it's a bit like the improvement cutter. Where do we want to get to? What's our vision? What's our goal? So that's the G of the GROW model. What do we want to achieve? Then we get into the where are we now? So you can start to see, if you're familiar with the improvement cutter, you can start to see that why we like this in terms of tying up with our lean thinking. What's our current situation? Where are we now? What are the internal obstacles? What are the external obstacles? What might we need to overcome in order to move on that journey to our goal? Then the O of GROW is about options. So we understand what we want to achieve. We've thought about where we are now. Then it's about thinking about, actually, what could I do? How could I move forward? What are the possibilities? What are my strengths? What resources do I have available to me? So what steps can I start to take? All that's fairly straightforward, but actually, in order to achieve anything, actually to move towards your goal, you need to have the will. You need to have the desire. You need to take those options, turn them into actions, and take accountability of your direction of travel. So let's walk through each of those steps. Let's think a little bit about what it means to set your goal. The sorts of questions we have at this stage are understanding, where do I want to focus? What area of my life? Is it about my career? Is it about personal life? Is it about general well-being? We need to decide what we really want to work on and explore what good looks like. The key to setting a goal is about it being inspiring, about it being challenging. So not just about being smart. You might need to revisit this. So, for example, to just sort of link this back into my world, I can remember going along to Lean HE conference in Stirling in 2016, and this sort of goes back to this session we're having for potential new presenters, and attending with a couple of colleagues the conference in Stirling, but I was very much an attendee. I was taking things in, I was having conversations with people, but I wasn't part of the framework of that conference. And as we were travelling home, we were reflecting, the three of us, and one of the things that I sort of set out almost as my goal there was that in 2018 in Tromsø, I would not only would I attend, but I would aim to deliver a session. And that helped me to sort of, when I was having my development conversations with my manager at the time, I got that documented. So that also helped with my business case. And it sort of really gave me a feeling of where do I want to get to? I want to get to presenting at that conference. So these are sorts of questions. What do you want? What does it look like? What will you have that you don't have now? What will achieving this goal enable you to do? And what will be different generally in the world? So once we've set our goal, we need to think about our reality. So again, the sorts of questions. Is there anything that you've already done that will help you move towards that goal? What are the facts? Again, as lean practitioners, as continuous improvement people, we always look at the facts. What is the current state? Have we made any assumptions? Let's question those assumptions. So again, we ask ourselves, what's happening at the moment? On a scale of 1 to 10, where are we? What's happening? What are we doing that's stopping us from achieving that goal? And what does this impact other areas of our lives? So we've done our goal. We've looked at our reality. Then we need to look at our options. So we need to think about what are the principles and values we want to adhere to. We need to think about what comes next. What are our first steps? What are our small steps? How might our ideas be applied? So again, what are the alternatives? What could I do? Who might I need to help me? Who could I ask? Who's done this before? And what have I tried before that has worked, that perhaps I've stopped doing, that I might want to restart? Then finally, the tricky bit, finding the will. We've got our plan. How do we move forward? What's the path? Let's find the path to move forward. We need to decide what comes next and make a call to action for ourselves. If this is about personal goals, it's about making ourselves, flicking that switch in our heads. So how will I do it? When will I do it? How committed am I to this action? And who might I talk to? Who might give me some help and support? So I've talked a little bit about the GROW model. And this is where it challenges me as a presenter, because I'm going to, I've got to sort of let you go away and work on something. I'm going to give you 5 minutes and think about that GROW model. And I've given you the summary there on the slide. And just have a think, are there any particular areas of your life, say whether it be personal or professional, and you're going to do this individually, so you don't need to share, it's completely private. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about what you might want to focus on. Okay, so you've got 5 minutes. I'm going to play some music, and you've got until 2:36 British Summer Time. Okay, you've got another minute or so. Okay, I'll stop the music. The music's more there so that I don't get freaked out by the silence. Okay, I hope you found that useful. Keep your notes to one side, because as we move through the next tool, we'll move back to what you've identified as part of this exercise for you to work on in a little bit more detail. So, we're now going to talk about the Lotus Blossom tool for ideas generation. It's a really useful tool. It's one that we love within my team. I guess it's a little bit like a fishbone diagram, but it's a bit prettier, we always say. But it can be used for all sorts of brainstorming sessions, whether it be, as in this case today, we're using it to think about personal things, but we use it really effectively to look at other things. We had a session in Lean HE England ran a session in Cambridge in 2019, towards the end of 2019. We use the Lotus Blossom tool to think about how we could embed continuous improvement within our institutions. So it's a lovely little tool to get a lot of ideas out in a relatively short space of time. So, just a little reminder, when we're thinking about ideas generation, the key things that we need to remember. We need to remember why we're there. We need to think, if it is something that's work related, that's about an issue or a problem, about getting ideas out, we need to make sure we have the right people in the room. We need to make sure everyone has a voice. And again, this tool we find is really helpful for making sure that that happens. It's about quantity over quality, but equally we need to have a plan to follow up. So just a little refresher about how you would go into a brainstorming exercise. So how does Lotus Blossom work? It's called Lotus Blossom because of what it looks like, and you'll see as we go through the next couple of slides. So we start off with a central question or a central problem or a central issue. It always helps if whatever's in the centre is posed as a question, because it helps that creativity. Once we have that central question, we then take a short 2-minute time to brainstorm at a relatively high level, some themes around answering that question. And don't worry, I will go through a worked example. So that gives us our central petals. So we have the question, we then have 8 options to look into that in more detail. Once we've done that, it's always nice to do a quick, depending on whether you're time critical or not, using a bit of dot voting, particularly if you're in a group, to identify, say, the top 4 of those petals. So once we've done that, we then get the centre of our outer petals. And then taking each subset one at a time. Again, we take between 2 and 5 minutes, depending on how things are going, to brainstorm another 8 options. Again, we're getting into more detail now. So you can see it's starting to look, and if we've got time to do everything, we get a lovely Lotus Blossom flower. So what does that look like in real life? So now this is an amalgamation of input from the whole of my team. So it's completely anonymized. Our question is, How can I improve my sense of well-being? And no judgment, please. It's a safe space. So with our initial little brainstorm, what do we come up with? Ideas like exercise, updating my look, taking up a hobby, learning something, keeping tidy, having self-awareness, being healthy, and culture myself. I'm not going to say who came up with that one, but culture myself. So we've got 8 subheadings there, if you like. Little bit of dot voting between us, and we came up with 4 options that we want to look at in more detail. So we've got those 4 options. We then take a little bit of time looking at each of those and going into more detail. So how can I update my look is the first one I'm going to look at. And the sorts of things that I might think about is getting my colours done, doing a clothes swap, doing makeup tutorials, buying better makeup, cutting my hair, etc., etc. Skincare, manicures, create looks on Pinterest. Moving on to the next one, what could I learn? And what you start to see as you go through this, those ideas that have got legs might start to appear in multiple places. So I've said before about updating my looks, about cutting my hair. I might then want to learn how to cut my hair. I might want to learn about the Civil War. I might want to learn about UK politics. Why anybody would want to do that, I don't know. I might want to learn a new language. I might want to take up sewing, etc. I might want to learn survival skills. I was listening to something at lunchtime on the radio. The UK government has issued something today about having survival packs in case of a catastrophic event, which feels a bit out there. So moving on, thinking about my hobby. What could I do? What could I learn? I could learn sewing. Ooh, sewing's come up twice. Computer games, painting, knitting, Pilates, bird spotting, running. And then how could I be healthier? So a bit drastic, some of these. Cutting out wine. Who'd go for that? Don't know. Earlier bedtime. Thinking about diet. Go vegan, go vegetarian. Putting our phone away after 9 o'clock. Meditation, running again. So you can see how in a relatively short space of time you can come up with within the region of 36 ideas that you can then take forward and you can then put an action plan towards. So you've got your ideas. A few little tips. By starting off with that central question, it puts your brain into problem solving mode. So whatever it is, thinking about your grow model and the sorts of things you're looking at, use that how can I, or how should I, or how would I. Use a question to start at the centre. Don't think too hard. Don't overthink it. Remember, like any good ideas generation, it's about quantity over quality at this stage. No idea is a bad idea. I don't know if you noticed on the previous one, one of my team is a BTS fan and she wanted to learn all the BTS lyrics. You know, no idea is a bad idea. It's important to set a time limit. Don't dwell too long on any one stage. If you've set some time, you're on your first outer blossom and things are drying up, move on to the next one. You can always go back later. If something occurs to you, you can always go back later. If you take too long, people will automatically start getting into analysis mode, getting into detail, and how you might do that. So look to set a time limit for each bloom. So, looking at a business example, just to give you an alternative, we could look. So we've talked about well-being, but you could use this practically. We've got a process that we've got errors. How can we stop errors occurring? The sorts of things we might come up with is we might have a number of things like a form, introducing penalties, so the stick, keeping an error log so we can analyse those errors, have training sessions, guidance, etc. Again, what are the things that we're going to pick up on? New form, new guidance, training, keeping an error log. And just going through this quickly, we might come up with a bunch of ideas about, and this was from a a practitioner project that was submitted. So it's real life bunch of ideas. We've picked up on training, so they've changed that training sessions into what would those training sessions look like, and then brainstormed around how that might look. What should an error log capture? Because again, you don't want a really nice quote that we always use is measure what you treasure, don't treasure what you measure. So it's really important if we're capturing errors, we need to know what we're looking for, etc., etc. So you get the idea, and I'm sure we'll be able to, John, are we going to share the slides afterwards so that people can have a look at this in detail if they want to?
Yes, we can send them out, Linda.
Fabulous. Okay, so I've got 10 minutes allocated for this. I think we're all right for time, aren't we, John?
You're challenging me back and forth with my mute button, but yes,
Sorry.
we're absolutely okay for time.
Okay, so over to you. You should all have received the template, the Lotus Blossom template. So again, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I don't expect you, and I'm not going to check, to complete the whole thing, but take an area that you identified in the GROW model and use Lotus Blossom to start to generate ideas in terms of how you're going to move towards addressing that question. So you might want to take 2 minutes towards that central bloom, and I'll set a timer, so I'll let you know when 2 minutes is up, and then move on to your outer blooms. As I say, I don't expect you to finish this. 10 minutes is just a snapshot, but it'll give you a feel for it. And if it's something that you want to carry on with, you're then at liberty to take it away and work on it later yourself. So again, I've got some music. The feedback I had when I trialed this last week was that the music was good. I feel like I'm running a yoga session. So if you drop off to sleep, that's absolutely fine. I will wake you up after 10 minutes. But it's 10 minutes giving you permission to reflect, really. So off you go. Not sure what happened there. Got 3.5 minutes to go. Okay, so raising everyone out of that meditative state that we're in, that effectively is the end of the presentation. I hope you found it useful. We've had some really positive feedback when we've trialed this virtual session back in Cambridge. I can see there's one question. Ooh, best practice for tools or methods. What do you think, John, Sven?
I think it's certainly something we've talked about before at both a European level but also a global level. So I think it's definitely something we need to do better at. I think we've got a Google Drive that we can share things on, but it's probably not the best platform. So I think we absolutely will take that away and give that some thought, because you know, there's a lot of people on the call, and there's a large number of practitioners across Europe, across the world, doing or applying continuous improvement, lean methodologies. We all do things in slightly different ways. So I think it is a great idea to have some kind of central place where we can start to capture some of the templates, the best practice that we're using. So absolutely, I will take that as an action to discuss at the European Steering Committee when we next meet. So any other questions that we've got? Lucy, yeah, so there's a few people just, really thought the tool was really good. What is the question? So not really a question, more of a, I think more of an observation. So so keep the questions coming in. Rachel, yeah, so Rachel Jeffries from Cumbria is saying if anyone would be willing to share their methods tools with her, please get in touch. So thanks in advance. So that's a plea from Rachel at Cumbria to share. So I think we will need to take that away, Linda and Sven-Ara, and give some thought as to how we can make it more accessible rather than people having to do it individually. So we will take that away, as I said. One question I had, Linda, was you mentioned it's gone down well when you've done it in your own university in Cambridge. What sort of without giving too much away, what sort of themes or areas of activity did you focus on as part of that?
Well, generally we have it now as part of our intro to lean training, so our sort of yellow belt equivalent. So we get people to practice based on some scenarios we work through the session. When we get to solutions generation, we're using it at that stage and getting them to practice. So there's a whole variety of different things that they're using it for. Quite a few of our practitioner candidates, when they have to do a project as part of their qualification, they seem to, we see a lot of lotus blossom in practitioner portfolio. So clearly it's something that's resonated. And I say I delivered this very same session last week as part of Learning at Work Week, and I've had some really, so again, looking from a wellbeing perspective, and I had some really great feedback, which again, without giving anything away, people were really positive and enjoyed the opportunity to just have some structure around looking at how they might make changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And I think we've got one more question, which I'll ask in a second, but just to kind of expand on that, when you're talking about themes and well-being, I think the Lean HE Global AGM was yesterday evening, and one of the things that was discussed there was around we're structured around 3 continental divisions in Europe, in Asia, Pacific, and Americas. So there's that geographical structure and organisation, but we should break down those geographical structures because there are themes that are common across the world. Whether it's sustainability, environmental sustainability, whether it's well-being, these are all extremely important areas, themes, and the more we can work together and collaborate on these things, the better. So I think that's another call to action, if you like, or challenge out there. These things are very important, and it also helps to, in my view, it also helps us demonstrate as practitioners and teams of practitioners the value we add to the organisation or our organisations. So it's certainly something to think about. So I see you typing, Linda, but just for everyone else's benefit, what is the optimum number of participants? Is there a minimum or a maximum?
Well, that's an interesting one. So probably for one flip chart, right? If you're doing this physically and you're around a flip chart, and I remember the Lean HE England event that I talked about, I sort of pre-created a bunch of flip charts. I would say you probably want no more than between 4 or 6 people in front of one blossom, but that's not to say you can't have multiples going on at the same time. So I think at that session in 2019, we had about 90 people. So we had, I think I created 10, which was, there were quite a lot of people, but we had 10, and that was probably a bit too many people per blossom, but it worked, and it did a great job. So it's like anything. It's like making sure that everyone's voices are heard. So you don't want too many around one template to drown out voices, but you can have multiple templates on the go, because you can then consolidate them all afterwards.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I noticed there was an earlier question which you have answered. You've typed in the answer, but Magdalena asked earlier, is it possible to attend your training in Cambridge? So for people outside of Cambridge, and you've kindly basically said yes, happy to accommodate that. So Linda is basically is happy to accommodate people from outside of Cambridge to come along to our training, with the caveat.
Up to a point.
Yes, up to a point. You've only got a couple. Yes. I know how generous you are, Linda. With your offers and your time. So I thought I would, rather than a kind of a direct response to Magdalena, just put that out there. I'm just scrolling down to see if there's anything else. I think we've covered most things, but yeah, I think quite a few people have reflected on just how much they like the tool and can see how it can be applied in their own organisations. So that's really good. Okay, so I think we've covered all the questions. Linda, all that's left is to really just thank you again for taking the time to present your session today. Really thought-provoking. Music was great, as you said. I thought it did kind of put me into this meditative state, which was really nice, just to chill out and reflect for 10 minutes. So it was excellent. I thought it was something from a Hollywood blockbuster or something. I just had that kind of feel about it. Really, really good. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a short comfort break of 5 minutes. So Svenara is going to put, hopefully, a 5-minute timer on the screen. And when we come back in 5 minutes' time, we'll move on to our second session, which is from our colleagues at, as I mentioned earlier, the University of Texas in Arlington. Karen Kusler and our colleagues, and they're going to be sharing their story on building a process improvement roadmap, who, what, when, and how. So look forward to that, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes.